Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Impodcast time!
That's right, a company that is a facsimile of Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Jordan, how you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. I feel like we've been off for a little while with the long Labor Day weekend. I trust that you had a good, relaxing Labor Day weekend.
I sure did, yeah. I returned back to our home state, in the home state of home improvement, the mitten known as Michigan, and I had a real nice time with my family and my girlfriend up there, and it was everything I hoped and then some.
Oh, wow. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, I spent, my in-laws are in town, and my wife and all of us went to the beach, so we got rained on a little bit, but we were able to have probably about an hour and a half or so at the beach, so that was good. And of course, football opened this weekend. You had college football and then Thursday night football last night. So it was a good start to the football season, very entertaining. And I know that you're more of a pro type guy over college. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
But you're happy that your Broncos pulled the upset, right?
Yeah, really happy.
Did not
my Broncos
follow.
as well as Tim Allen spent some time at Western Michigan as well.
Yeah,
so
you guys,
it all ties back to home improvement.
And that's why you went there, right? Because of Tim Allen?
I went. Tim Allen went there, and my sister went there. So just the two people I really look up to, had considered that the place to go to school.
It's all it
ideal
took.
Place. Yeah. I do like the pros better than college, though. This year I'm going to kind of try to rededicate myself to following college football.
Oh, you're going to dabble a little bit more, huh?
I'm going to dabble a little bit. Yeah. Growing up, I really liked Michigan, and then I think as I matured, none of my friends liked Michigan, so I think I sort of lost interest. But I'm an adult now, so I can follow any college sports team I want. And Michigan looks like they're going to be pretty good this year.
So time for you to jump on the bandwagon.
It's a good time to get back. It's a good time to get back into it, is what I'm saying.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair enough. I'm obviously a Michigan State fan as a graduate of that college, but I like pretty much. I do like pro better, but I like college a lot, and I watched probably like 5 or 6 games over the weekend. A lot of good matchups in the first week, a lot of upsets, and so it was an entertaining week of foosball. And yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else to say about that? We're excited about the Lions.
Yeah. Well, we're in a fantasy football league together,
yeah.
And if I know anything about fantasy football, it's that other people love hearing about your own fantasy football teams and leagues, and it just makes for good discussion. But we play each other in the opening game here this season, and I've not been so good of late the last couple of years, and you've kind of done fairly well. But we opened the season playing each other, and last night our kickers squared off. Brandon McManus versus Graham Gano, and my kicker outscored yours.
Yeah, he did.
But he did miss the game-winning kick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever. But that doesn't matter to me.
No, yeah, the fact that the Panthers lost because of him does not matter to you. So you still got 8 points out of him. Good for you. And we have an interesting matchup ahead. I'm hoping that this is the year of your resurgence, and
that's a nice thing of you to say.
I'm hoping also of a resurgence of wisdom, because I feel like it's time for wisdom.
Are you saying you want to cue those grunts?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Sure, it's all safe to me. Oh, no.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom.
All right, this week's Bit of Wisdom comes from the chapter entitled More Power, from Tim Allen's text, Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man, the best-selling text. Real men get really dirty, and they need something strong to clean up with. I like lava soap, the soap for men. Lava can wash those grease-stained palms and hairy arms with filthy fingernails. There's also Gojo, that cream auto mechanics use. Wipe it on, you don't need water, and wipe it off with a rag. I think it works by removing the top layer of skin, yet it's easy on your hands because it's made with lanolin. I know lanolin comes from sheep. Do sheep know lanolin comes from sheep? I think Gojo is made from the whole animal ground up. It's full of oil, and it's got a really bad odor. But it works, and with an ounce of imagination, it makes you feel like a real mechanic. Gojo will take off anything, including chrome. It also works wonders making French fries. This has been your bit of wisdom.
Do they pay for that sponsorship right there?
the Gojo? Yeah, and interestingly enough, I received an email yesterday morning that this book from the library is long overdue.
Uh-oh.
So not only is this bit unfunny, it's also costing me money at the same time. So yeah, I gotta go take care of that today. But that's been your bit of wisdom, and as opposed to just kind of dwelling on it or kind of reflecting, I know that this segment has been kind of controversial in the past.
Very controversial.
Really controversial. So let's get into the episode, shall we?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about episode 14, For Whom The Belch Tolls. So this episode was written by Sheila M. Anthony. I believe this is the first and only episode she writes of the series, but she's also written episodes for Family Matters and Wild Thornberrys, if you're into that kind of stuff. And this episode aired January 14th, 1992. The title reference is to an Ernest Hemingway novel about the Spanish Civil War, something that you and I know a ton about. And I guess let's go ahead and get into the synopsis. What do you say?
I think that sounds good. You ever read any Hemingway?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was required for anything in high school either, which is kind of a shock.
Hemingway is a guy that people often say they like and is kind of, touted as this, this literary heavy hitter. But I've only read one thing, and it was The Old Man in the Sea, and man, dreadfully boring. I mean, guy, he spares no it's all it's very detailed. And,
they say that writing is different nowadays, as far as detail.
Who are they?
Just things that I've read.
I think it is funny that this they're referencing Hemingway in title because he's kind of like a renowned misogynist, and Home Improvement is a show that is, in some circles, renowned as being kind of misogynist.
Yeah, you could say they're kindred spirits there. So
indeed. So yeah, we can get into the episode.
Sure. Plot synopsis by Tony Topola, as always. I'll go ahead and read it. It's a little bit of a longer one, but it's family night at the Taylors. Randy would like to rewatch Bury Me Again, and Tim suggests Bayonet Hell. But it's Jill's time to choose, and she wants to see The Sound of Music. Then Tim's college roommate Stu calls to say that he's in town. Tim agrees to meet him over a beer because Jill finds him obnoxious and doesn't want him in their home. However, Tim can't tell Stu he is not welcome. On tool time, Tim demonstrates how to insulate a window. So we got a lot going on here. Lots of interesting titles for movies, only one of which I've seen, The Sound of Music. And Stu obviously is going to be a big part of this episode, so let's go ahead and get into it. What do you say?
Sure thing. Sounds good to me.
So we're going to open in the garage. Brad and his father are doing some nice bicep curls and grunting. And I thought you would appreciate this. Brad is wearing what he is in a microcosm. He's wearing some very psychedelic pants, but he's also wearing a Detroit Lions shirt, which naturally made me think of
the Lions just recovered a fumble.
Exactly. So that was a good start to the episode for me. Mark and Randy come in, and Randy immediately picks a bone with his older brother. So
that's been a reoccurring theme here. Yeah, they're really setting up the Brad as kind of a jock, and Brad and Tim's kind of dynamic as being a little bit closer than maybe Tim and Mark are, because they're, he's interested in kind of the mechanical side of things as well as sports, and that's something that will track the whole series. So yeah, they're doing a good job setting that up early on.
Yeah, that's definitely a call into future episodes. So Jill is in the kitchen, and the door's kind of open there, so she can see what's going on. And all the boys at this point are lifting weights. Mark's in there lifting up like a 5-pound weight, and Randy's doing something similar, and they're all putting on a show for Jill. And then they really put on a show where they line up and they do several different poses.
Egyptian bicep.
I forget some of the other names, but they're good. They do them with gusto, and I'm sure Jill appreciates that. But like the synopsis said, once again, it's family night. So it's always family
the last
night.
3 episodes are family night, and that's something that we'll have to talk about later. But Jill is really upset because as we'll get into, Tim's friend kind of spoils family night, but every single night is family night. Yeah, she's holding family night on a pedestal when it seems to me that 7 days 7 nights out of the week, it's family.
Yeah, at some point it's going to have to get ruined just because of, sheer, probability. So, but yeah, they're going to go ahead and rent a movie. I don't know if you were a Jumbo Video or Blockbuster type of guy, but...
Neither. Paradise.
Oh, Paradise. Yeah, I almost forgot about them.
You can't forget about the only video store in Davison that still exists.
Yeah, it's on the fringes, but it somehow has a loyal fan base, I guess. But, yeah, so I used to go there to get old video games. They had a good selection.
It's cheap. Yeah,
it was affordable.
They're not sponsoring us.
Not yet.
We've got to move on. So yeah, it's family night. They're talking about movies. Bayonet Hell is brought up. Bury Me Again, which I suspect are fake. I didn't look them up. But Jill decides that she would like The Sound of Music. And what happens, Jordan? What do we see happen after that?
Boy, there's a yell that is eerily familiar.
Yeah, it's the opera treatment. We're seeing a lot of the same beats being hit here on Home Improvement, but they do not like The Sound of Music. That's for sure.
No.
But instead of dwelling on that, the phone rings and Tim leaves the garage area and enters the kitchen. And come to find out, his old buddy Stu Cutler's in town, and he wants to come visit Tim. We then learn that Jill does not like Stu Cutler because she believes he's obnoxious. She talks about him shaking up beer. She just doesn't want him around to ruin family night.
Yeah, and it goes further in the episode. We'll learn they were all college friends together.
And I didn't even know Tim and Jill went to college together.
I guess it's mentioned earlier. Do you remember on the episode when they're talking about dancing and they're downstairs with all the records and stuff? I think they mention it then.
No, I don't. When we watch an episode and record after that, it's kind of out of the memory. I have trouble distinguishing.
Just like Tim Taylor, you are always looking forward, and that's a good and a bad thing. But I like Tim's nickname for Stu. He calls him Puke Face, so they've had several great memories together.
Classic bro banter. This is how you and I talk to each other before we start recording.
Yeah, you always call me Puke Face, and we talk about our wild escapades of going down to Western Michigan's field at night.
watching the men who stare at goats at the local Cineplex and sneaking onto the football field. Yeah, both of which are true opposite ends of the spectrum. But
wild.
Stu's obnoxious and Jill's not happy about it.
No.
That's essentially where the scene kind of ends up. And
and she mimes like a stabbing motion with her giant knife at seeing him. So she's aggressively not wanting to see him.
And when we meet him, it doesn't necessarily add up to me, but we can get into that.
Yeah.
But we cut to tool time, and they're installing aluminum storm window. Also, they talk about plastic sheeting for windows. So essentially, is that a heat mechanism? They're trying to keep in the heat.
I've actually done the plastic one before.
Yeah, my parents used to do that.
Yeah, and they use, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but the crowd is really laughing at things that are not funny at all. Like Lisa brings out the hair.
There's nothing new there.
No, but I still want to call it out because Lisa brings out the hairdryer, and for some reason the crowd thinks that's funny.
I think they're laughing because Tim makes a weird face at Lisa. He raises his eyebrows or something.
Well, yeah, that's hilarious. I can see how eyebrows would be hilarious. So, he messes with Al's hair with the hairdryer, and then goes to one of his favorite jokes, the mother-in-law joke. And the interesting thing about this, that's really foreshadowing, is at the end of this Tool Time episode, he ends with, "You never know when the storm is going to come rolling through." And moments later, a storm does roll through, and his name is Storm Stew.
It's a little foreshadowing. Yeah, a little foreshadowing. So, Storm Stew arrives backstage on the Tool Time set, and I think we have a clip here, don't we?
Yes.
Taylor! Oh, God! Cutler? Hey, buddy! Good to see you, man.
See you too.
See you Monday, Tim.
Wait a minute, now come over here. Please, come on. This wild dog here is my college roommate, Stu Cutler, Al Borland.
Hi, Stu.
Hey, Al. Nice beard. Had chili for lunch, huh?
No, I didn't, Stu.
So, gotta work with this jerk, Kyle.
Yes, I do, Stu. Well, it was nice meeting you.
Great sense of humor.
Thank you.
He's a serious guy, but he knows his way around a shop. Boy.
Whoa. Kill me. Just kill me now. She looks even better in person. Introduce me.
No.
Why not?
Because she's a coworker, a good friend of mine, and you're nothing but dried hog phlegm.
Watch my move. Hi, Stu Cutler.
Bye, Tim. See you Monday.
Night, Lace. Ah, boy. It's good to see you still have it, Cutler. She's not your type, man. She can see. Now, come on, let's go down and get a beer. I'll get changed up and go.
Your house?
I thought we'd go to the place on the corner we like.
You're not gonna take me home to dinner?
I thought maybe just you and me go out together.
Wait, now I can't come to town without seeing Jill the Pill.
She'll understand, like a guy's night out.
Wait, so you don't want me to come to your house, is that it?
No, of course not. You're always welcome at my house, man.
Well, let's go.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Jill will be so surprised to see you.
I can't wait to see her face.
Me neither.
So yeah, we're off stage now, and Storm Stew surprises Tim, and Al's there as well. Al's getting ready to leave, but Tim wants to make sure that he meets Stu, and they have, that brief conversation there was pretty funny, where Al's basically just deadpan and serious, and Stu just, he doesn't get it. And
I think it's really, really funny.
Yeah, it's good.
I was LOLing.
LOL.
As is often said. I was really getting a kick out of that. I like that.
Yeah, it was a
good Al episode.
Yeah, and good interaction between them. They're just kind of polar opposites as far as characters go. And we also see that Stu is into Lisa, and he tries to make a move that fails miserably, and she just kind of walks past him as she leaves.
It was sort of reminded me of like you trying to pick up women. Kind of the same.
Yeah,
sort
it's a
of,
wonder I'm
dynamic and
married
approach.
at this point. So. But I think this is kind of the second time we see that Lisa is kind of like focused on for her beauty. I think in one of the first episodes, the crowd like whistles at her, and then Stu is.
This is the first time we ever hear anyone say like, "Wow, she's a knockout." He says she's even better looking here than she is on TV.
Yep.
So yeah.
And then Stu wants to come home for dinner, and Tim tries to evade it, but Stu peer pressures him, and he gives in. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about Stu. What's the rap sheet on Stu Cutler?
Yeah, Stu is played by Christopher McDonald, and Christopher McDonald has 188 credits to his name. Very recognizable figure over the last 20, 25 years. Recently, I saw him in an episode of Ballers, the Dwayne Johnson HBO show. He played the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, just a bit part. He was in The Good Wife, about 6 episodes of that a year or so ago. But he's most known more for his film work, so Requiem for a Dream, which is, for my money, one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. He plays a game show host in that. He's in Thelma and Louise, 61, The Iron Giant, and his most well-known role, and kind of, I would say, defines him as an actor almost, is Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore. Shooter.
Yeah.
But I really like Christopher McDonald, and I have liked him in almost everything I've ever seen him in. I think he's really good.
Yeah, he's very talented.
This is, I don't know if you've seen Thelma and Louise, but the role he's playing in this episode is a lot like his role in Thelma and Louise, I would say, and they kind of come a year or so apart, so I wonder if he's kind of pulling from that at all. But he's really good in this episode, and he's just a very good actor in general, so I really enjoyed him.
I just assumed that Shooter McGavin was when Stu Cutler got a little bit older, and he's just kind of like bitter at Tim, and that's why he's the way he is. But
it's the evolution of Stu Cutler.
He also gets rid of his mustache, but
I loved his mustache and his jean jacket. He just looked great.
Yeah, I mean, it really completed the ensemble for him. So getting back into the episode, Tim comes home. And he, quickly tries to break the news to Jill that Stu is outside.
What is Jill doing when Tim comes home?
I didn't notice, but I'm guessing she's cooking.
Yeah, I was thinking if you were to count the number of shots opening shots for an episode or a scene that featured Jill cooking in an episode, it's got to be
that's the
4 or 5. I would say half of all the scenes she's cooking or she's doing the dishes without opening an episode.
Yeah, just like Tim is always in the garage, basically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Tim breaks the news. Stu's parking outside. Jill is obviously not thrilled, and she basically says 1 beer and he's out of here. So And I gotta say, Stu makes quite the entrance as he arrives into the house. He's like,
He sure does. Yeah.
he's yelling. He's being Stu Cutler, and he brings in some flowers, which is nice. He does like this weird hug handshake with Jill, getting the beer, throwing a beer to Tim, hugging her, and he's kind of he's like a Sour Patch Kid. He tells her that she's lost weight, but then he says, "What's the real goal? Like, how much more weight do you want to lose?" Implying that
about 10 more pounds.
Yeah, implying that she still is a little heavy.
Here's the thing about Stu Cutler, Jordan. Here's the thing.
Are you a Stu Cutler apologist?
Yeah, I am, and I'm gonna kind of come down on Jill hard for one of the few times in the series. This just does it. It's like it's a good performance because this is very much like a specific kind of person. Like, people like Stu Cutler exist. Like, you see them all the time. Like, not only like refusing to kind of move forward, but just kind of an obnoxious jokester with a good heart. Like, he's a nice guy. He comes in with flowers. Mm-hmm. We'll see, he's good with the kids. Mm-hmm. He's not, he's nice to Jill. He's nice to Tim. He's a little sarcastic, but like, he's a good enough guy.
He's just rough around the edges. That's all.
I don't even think he's rough around I just think he's just immature. Like, he's just a little bit of a jokester. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like throughout this whole episode, Jill is like, really, not only is she putting Tim in a really tough place, but she's just like unnecessarily kind of, she seems just kind of cruel to Stu, and I don't know that he deserved that.
Do you think that Stu tried to make a move on her back in college, and that she's never really let it go?
I mean, I could buy it, but if that's why she doesn't like him, then they need to say that in the show, because otherwise, all we see is this guy is like a little. I mean, I guess he's more than a little. He's obnoxious, but he's not like rude. I don't think. Do you think he's rude? Do you find him unlikable?
I mean, he goes both ways for me. He could definitely. I could only take Stu in little doses, I think.
Yeah, well, little doses.
Like once a year, apparently.
Yeah, like once a year, like coming to watch a movie. It's not like he lives next door.
Yeah, I think for Jill, he is like a storm. He comes through and he spills beer everywhere, and it ruffles her feathers, and I think more than it probably should. But
yeah, and I mean, like, if that's fine, but that's not really what we're seeing. Like, he's obnoxious, but like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was kind of adding up. Like, her resentment of him and her like wanting him to leave, and like what we're actually seeing out of him didn't necessarily equal a whole to me. He's obnoxious and he's immature, but like, he is friendly enough, and I don't know. I think he means well. I really liked this performance, and I just sort of felt, and we'll get into how I felt at the end.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Stu wants to see the boys, and so Jill calls in the boys, and like you said earlier, they love Stu. He's good with the kids. He picks up Mark, and they kind of go into the garage, and
he's a wacky uncle.
He is the wacky uncle, and he plays the part well. He. In the garage, like on the way into the garage, I liked the joke that he made at Tim as far as
posing.
Yeah, posing to be a man or something like that.
Yeah, what is he posing as a man?
Yeah, just a good old fashioned Stu joke. But yeah, they go into the garage and they're gonna show him their weights and stuff, and they open the door. Like Jill and Tim open the door, and he's like yelling and smashing the can on his head. So.
Yeah,
the kids love that.
Do-a, Diddy, dancing around. They're having a good time.
Yeah.
He's cool. He's a cool guy.
He's like would you rather have him babysit the kids or Sir Larry Houdini, who ends up getting locked in the trunk?
That's a callback to episode on Offside. Go ahead and check that out. I would rather have...
I think I'd pick Stu.
That's tough. I'd probably pick Stu because he is not locked in a trunk, so by default,
yeah, he's just a better choice.
Present. He's just there.
Seems a bit more competent, at least.
I mean, he does seem like the kind of guy that would like let the kids like start drinking, like having sips of his beer, and take them. He'll take them out to Club Piranha later on, and call them. My favorite thing about Stu Cutler is how he repeatedly calls people wild dogs.
Wild dogs, yeah, that's his go-to line.
That.
It's
yeah,
good.
he's like, those are wild.
It's good.
Dogs.
But yeah, we're in the garage, and like you said, they're doing some arm farting, singing "Do-Wah Diddy." And, at this point, Jill has had enough. That put her over the edge, which seems like a strange thing to push her over the edge.
She was just waiting for something,
Yeah, she was looking for any excuse. And, Tim, he sees her distress, and he's going to go in and tell him that his time is up. So, in the garage, Stu isn't ready to leave yet, but Stu wants Tim to bench 150 pounds to prove that he's a man, I suppose. I don't really know. But Tim... he obliges, he gets down on the bench, and he kind of struggles, but he mostly does it, I would say. Afterward, he's grimacing and kind of like walking around like he threw his back out and gets the boys to leave and go set the table. And this scene kind of shows really what Stu is all about, I would say.
Before we move on to that, like Tim struggles to bench 150, Stu like reps it out as he's talking.
Yeah.
Do you think that was real, or do you think do you think that Tim was acting like he couldn't bench 150, or that Stu really could do it a bunch of times, or do you think that was like in the script, or what do you think there?
I'm sure that was in the script there. I
mean, I guess it was in the script, but I guess do you think that it was actually difficult for Tim and really easy for Stu, or what do you make of that?
I don't know. Tim seems like a little bit thicker than Stu and would have a little bit more of that old man strength. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Stu probably has more time to do things like work out because he doesn't have 3 boys running around. So
I mean, I was thinking before he said that, I was thinking I don't know if Tim actually could bench 150.
You don't think so?
I don't know. He just doesn't look like a very strong guy. He's thicker, but And I mean, we should spend as much time as we can talking about Tim Allen's body.
I think he's got a bigger upper body. He's got some of the upper body strength that might help him with that.
I don't agree. Yeah,
okay, well, maybe that'll be a poll question this week for Twitter.
How do you phrase a question like that? What
can Tim bench 150? That's a yes or no.
I thought you were going to say, does Tim have a thick upper body?
No, we'll shy away from that. So. Getting back into the scene a little bit here, this is really kind of Stu in a nutshell to me, and their relationship, how it's kind of changed since college. Stu is really, they're starting out, they just reminisce a little bit about college, about, certain... Donna Gilmore, other girls, the cars that they had and worked on. Stu has a picture of his old Impala in his wallet, which is a bit strange to me.
You don't keep a photo of
my
your
Grand
Prix right there near the credit cards. I don't know.
No, I don't. Maybe I just have my priorities all wrong. But it's evident here that Stu kind of lives in the past. He says that, don't you wish you could go back? And Tim kind of continues to push it forward. He says that they were great times, but today is real good too. And
yeah, Stu wants to live. He says, to live.
He would give anything to go back. You know?
He'd give anything to go back. And I noticed here that one of the few times I've known. Well, I guess every once in a while I'll say something about the camera work, but there was the camera work here was really good. They do extreme close-ups of Stu, and they'll cut extreme close-ups to Tim back and forth as they're saying things. And I think that it really kind of heightened the moment here.
Yeah.
It sort of added to the dialogue. Stu is saying one thing and he's very solemn, and then we're cutting over to Tim very close, and I don't know, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, the dichotomy of their faces going back and forth was really good. So
yeah, it was good, and you don't really see that very often on this show. Every once in a while we'll have a cool overhead shot or something, but I really noticed.
Yeah, but mostly it
drew attention to their emotions here.
Yeah, so it was good camera work, and Tim at this point, he tries to move on from that conversation and says, he's enjoying his life now, and he's trying to get rid of Stu at this point, but Stu basically just decides that he's going to leave and go get more beer and come back for the movie, right? Yeah. And on his way out, he lets out a nice burp, and he's on his way to get more beer, so...
Yeah, Jill mistakenly thinks that he's leaving.
Right.
But it's revealed that he's just going back.
Her nightmare is not over yet.
Right.
And Jill, as Stu leaves, Jill has Tim taste the chili that she's made, and then she gets down to brass tacks. She gets real for a moment. She asks, basically the question is, does Tim like Stu now? And
would they still be friends if they met now?
Yeah, and Tim
which is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean that's I don't know.
You could ask yourself that about every friend you've ever made, and the answer would probably. I mean, it's who can answer that? Who's to say? I don't know. That seemed like a really, this is like her putting Tim in the most difficult of positions here and like asking him a question like that. Like, what's he supposed to say?
Yeah.
How do you answer that question?
And he does, I mean, he evades it basically initially.
Well, it's so circumstantial too. Like, I don't know. Like, what, who's to say? Like, if Tim met this like immature, like man-child,
yeah, they probably wouldn't hang out.
Probably not.
But
like,
also at the same time,
important?
I think maybe you know how you have some friends that you can only do certain things with?
Yeah.
I feel like Stu could at least be the person that he does car things with, because they obviously still have a very passionate relationship about cars. So you never know. You just never know. And at the end of the scene, we just see that she just doesn't get their relationship, and what kind of binds them still together. So, but really, yeah. I think this conversation really lingers with Tim and makes him think about a lot of things. And that is a good point. The friends that you can only do certain things with. I had a buddy in undergrad named Kevin, and him and I would only really go see movies together, and that was really all we did. We didn't necessarily do anything outside of that. I mean, maybe we'd meet up at the bar every now and then, but yeah, movie Kevin. We would just go see movies at the theater, talk about them in the car on the way home afterwards, and then that was essentially it. See you next Showtime. See you next Expendables movie, Kevin. You know, and we're kind of like that. We basically only can talk about Home Improvement. So
yeah, that's true.
Which is why we started this. That's why we started this podcast. But
our friendship lacks any real depth beyond Tim and Jill and the boys.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
But yeah, so we'll move on to like the next scene here, which is outside with Wilson. And I guess before we start talking about it, we'll go ahead and play a clip.
Wilson, can I ask you something?
Make your best pitch, Tim.
I've got this old friend in town, and I always think we're gonna have a lot of fun, but instead we always talk about all the fun we used to have.
Well, there's nothing wrong with reminiscing, Tim.
But he thinks I'm the same guy I was 15 years ago. And I try to be that guy, but I'm really not.
Well, it sounds like he's spending all his time looking backwards, and you're spending yours looking forward.
That's it, I can't keep up with this guy. The thought of crushing a beer can on my head makes my butt quiver.
Well, that's why I gave it up, Tim.
I don't know what to do about it.
Well, it sounds to me like you're having a hard time saying goodbye.
Why should I say goodbye? He's been one of my best friends for 15 years.
Well, has he, Tim? Or was he your best friend 15 years ago? You see, Tim, I believe it was St. Paul who said, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things."
So Wilson's making horseshoes in the side yard there, and you notice that he says when throwing the shoe that it's all on the wrist, which reminded you of what?
Yeah, in Happy Gilmore, we've got Chubbs, the golf coach, saying it's all in the hips several times.
Yeah.
So that really stuck out to me, since obviously Stu Cutler or Chris McDonald will be in both shows. So
yeah, I wish that Stu would have dropped a
shooter.
I ate a piece of shit for breakfast, and then one of the kids would ask him if he eats pieces of shit for breakfast. So I think that would have been nice as well.
Yeah, we didn't get that though in the '90s family television show.
Hey, you know what? It wouldn't. I mean, the jokes at the end we have with Al are every bit as every bit as vulgar as that. But yeah, so Wilson's making horseshoes. Tim kind of explains the situation. A situation we've belabored at this point, but Wilson recognizes that reminiscing is okay; it's kind of natural, but notes that Tim is a man that prefers to look forward and live in the present and the future, whereas Stu is someone that looks backwards. Tim notes that he has a hard time saying goodbye. At which point Wilson kind of references St. Paul. I don't really know that I understood his St. Paul point per se. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, so it's basically saying when I was a child, I did things as a child, and then when I grew up to be a man, I put away childish things.
So just like maturation.
Yeah, it's just that kind of a quote, and he's basically saying the difference between Tim and Stu is that maturation, the maturity process. Stu doesn't really have it, and Tim does. So
yeah, and then Wilson notes at the end, he asked Tim if because Tim says, Stu's been my best friend for 15 years. And Wilson asked him, has he been your best friend for 15 years, or was he your best friend 15 years ago? People are really coming down hard on Tim here. I feel like people are really putting the pressure on him to sort of label this friendship and decide what it is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it just seemed kind of tough. I just felt for Tim in this episode, from pretty much the get-go, he really is put in a difficult position, and there's no right way to handle something like this.
Yeah, they're basically breaking up at this point. That's what they're asking him to do. And Wilson leaves the scene, and Stu is back from the store. He yells on his way in, which he likes to do. And I guess we're going to play a clip of this as well.
Oh! Hey! Guess who I ran into down at the store? Mike Forshey and Tino.
Hey, Tino. What are those guys up to now?
They're still a couple of wild dogs. They're going down to Club Piranha and get crazy. I told them you and I'd meet them there.
I'm not going to Club Piranha.
Well, you have to go. You remember back in college, the four of us stayed up 36 hours, then drove halfway to Mexico City with the emergency brake on?
I'm not going out tonight.
Why not?
Stu, I thought we were going to stay here, watch TV, the video chili with the kids.
Oh, right. The family thing. Yeah. No problem. I'll call Tino and Forshey. They can get a keg of beer and come over here.
No, Stu. No.
Hey, this is Tino and Forshey. It'll be like old times.
Tell you what, why don't you go down to Club Piranha and you hang out with those guys tonight?
Without you? Come on, it won't be the same.
Stu, I don't think it is the same.
Dad, dinner's ready. Can I turn on the video?
Not now.
Okay.
What are you watching?
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. Maybe I will go down and meet Forshey and Tino. Would I be a real jerk if I skipped dinner and kind of headed out?
No, not at all. Skip.
Well, I just don't want to disappoint Jill.
Don't worry about it. It'll be rough, but I'll be able to smooth it out.
So this scene, and I mentioned this earlier to you before we started recording, it's just, it's very impactful. It's a very momentous scene here as far as...
Difficult to watch.
Difficult to watch. And you mentioned that it's more of what they don't say, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Basically, Stu ran into some old buddies, and they want to meet up at Club Piranha.
Tino and Forshey. Just another another great character names there by the Home Improvement crew. Tim kind of puts his foot down, and they both know that this moment is kind of what changes their friendship. And basically, what is said here. He wants Tim to go to Club Piranha. Tim reminds him that it's family night. We plan on watching a movie. And he's, Stu says, well, I'll just get Tino and Forshey to come over here. We'll get a keg, which is probably a step too far from the character. And Tim says, I'm just not. You go without me. It's fine. At which Stu mentions, it won't be the same without you. And then Tim kind of drops the line that changes their friendship and kind of is the most impactful moment of the episode. Maybe it's not the same, Stu. And what kind of follows that?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of linger there for a second. They kind of look at each other, and it's that realization. Stu kind of has that realization that this friendship is not the same. It's not going to be like it used to be, and it's just kind of
they linger there.
Yeah, they do for a couple seconds.
It's really kind of it's uncomfortable for the audience as it's uncomfortable for them, and it's this scene and this whole kind of ending to the episode. It's really subtle in a way Home Improvement almost never is, where they don't ever say, we're not friends anymore, or we're different. I guess you've changed and I'm the same. It's just they just kind of know. It's an innate feeling that things are probably never going to be the same again.
Yeah. And, the silence is broken by Mark, and they go inside and they say good. Like Stu starts saying goodbye as everyone gets ready for dinner, and it's a surprise to Jill and the kids, but he high fives the kids, and they kind of say Tim and Stu kind of say another goodbye at the door.
Stu leaves the beer, and they kind of do like a shake. And credit to Christopher McDonald. It's really good acting. Like you can tell that the character is very sad.
I'm sad.
He's trying to seem kind of macho in spite of that. So they kind of clasp hands, and he says, "Next time I'm in town, I'll be sure and give you a call first." And Tim says, "Yeah, you do that." But I think everyone knows that there won't be a next time.
Yep.
It's really, really good. This whole episode is, I think, really well done, and we'll talk about that highs and lows. But yeah, just Christopher McDonald's acting here is so much better than I think what we normally see on Home Improvement as far as like guest characters go. And I love this ending scene. I mean, I didn't necessarily love it from like watching it perspective, but like it's just really well acted, and the dialogue and just the subtlety of it just made it really great for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, it's movie time, and Jill is excited to watch The Sound of Music, but it turns out they went and got Bayonet Hell, and that really disappoints her. But that's kind of
I could have done without that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next scene is on Tool Time. They are now hanging a storm door, and lots of not even well hidden, I would say.
No, they're pretty out there, these jokes, yeah.
Yeah, penis jokes. And Al is funny in this, I guess, just the way that he, like...
Al's really getting Tim's goat, and he, Tim can't say anything without Al kind of turning it into a
innuendo
joke about Al being well endowed. Talking about being hung well, and Al says, yeah.
Speak
and
for
then
yourself,
Tim says,
Tim.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Al says, line it up with... if you line it up with the king, and then Al says, referring to Al as kind of the king, and it's quite funny. Al is batting 1,000 in this episode. He has very limited moments and very limited dialogue, but yeah, when he gets his chance, he really he's swinging for the fences, and it's working. But Tim kind of notes how things change with age, and he relates it to the storm door. And then the door busts, and that's the end of the episode.
Yep, and the post-credit scene is outtakes of Tool Time. And Tim is really just messing up the lines, kind of like I do every single time we record a podcast, and I can't speak for
It was a lot like that.
Yeah,
I often... You're kind of the Tim Allen, and I'm sort of the Al Borland of this podcast.
So you are the Randy, and I am the Mark. You are...
I'm all the cool, likable characters, and you are the ones that are flawed.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So that's me in a nutshell. But
did you notice in the blooper section how he says "try the veal," and that is like a bit of wisdom that I've read a couple weeks ago.
That's probably a go-to line for him.
Yeah, it's a really funny go-to line, right?
Sure. I mean, it's not overused at all.
And that's the episode, though. It ends with the bloopers. Yeah, it's not. The end of these episodes are seldom very satisfying, but on the whole, this was a satisfying episode.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you want to go with your highs and lows first?
Yeah. So I think that I've never seen this episode before, and I think for that reason I was just surprised and kind of bowled over up your alley. Last episode, go ahead and check it out. By this episode, I think that it's like very poignant, and we were kind of talking about this yesterday, I think, how I think that they had an idea, and they probably thought this was going to be a little bit more of a serious episode, but I think they kind of stumbled onto something like even more poignant and deeper than maybe they expected, and I think that that's kind of the result of the Christopher McDonald performance. Like, he just brings kind of like a sadness, and he's almost like sort of manic at times, like, like he seems so desperate to cling on to the past and sort of keep things the way they are. But at the same time, like, there's also this desperation and this sort of sadness in his eyes. So I think he really elevated the material here. I thought that it seemed like very real. And, obviously, like, pop culture and stories and films or whatever is like littered with examples of people kind of like, you want to stay in the past. You can't repeat the past. Like, that's like the whole Great Gatsby thing, is he wants to go back to this time in his life that, things were spectacular, and he desperately is trying to recreate that. So basically, I'm saying Stu Cutler is a modern Jay Gatsby. But no, I really like this. It's really good. It's very true to life. This episode is subtle in ways that no Home Improvement episode really ever is. They don't ever outwardly say, like, we're not going to be friends anymore. You're different than I'm different now. You're the same. This is not going to work out. It's just kind of unspoken, and I think that's what makes it so good. And, like, yeah, I like the Al bits. He's very funny. It's a good mix of, like, humor and emotion, and, you know, like I said, the reminiscing and, like, I don't know, I've felt this way with, like, friends I used to have where, you know, every time you get together, all you do is talk about things that you did 5 years ago, and like the past. Like, you have nothing new to talk about. You can't relate now. The only way that you relate now is to talk about how you used to relate. So, like, yeah, I think this is a great episode of Home Improvement, and I loved it the first time I watched it, and this morning I liked it even more. Just really, really a great performance by Christopher McDonald, and very poignant, very deep, and also just very funny. And yeah, I was so surprised and elated to be able to watch this episode. Lows, nothing.
Nothing, not one.
No.
Wow.
Well, Jill puts Tim in a tough spot, and I don't know that it's necessarily shown on screen. It's not really. I don't think that Jill's
the motivation isn't quite.
Yeah, the motivation is it just doesn't necessarily add up.
Yeah, it's just kind of plot driven. I would say for me, I echo a lot of the same things. Christopher McDonald does a great job. He's 3D, which we haven't really seen from a lot of the guest characters. We see kind of just like the K&B boys are very much who they are, and they don't really have much else to them besides the superficial level.
Yeah, they're just like one-liner machines.
Yeah,
right?
And Stu kind of does a little bit of, you know, back and forth as far as emotions go in this episode. He's up and he's down, like you said, and that's really good. I guess my only low is just because I'm kind of sick of seeing this is like the reaction of Tim and the boys to like opera and Sound of Music and stuff like that. Like I could get over that, but
it wasn't funny the third time, and now it's like the 8th time we've seen him do that.
Yeah, I do like the subtle small things in this episode as far as like Brad and his dad doing bicep curls. Like, even though it's not a focus in this episode, you still see their relationship growing. You see the sibling rivalry between Randy and Brad. Just a couple small things like that. They kind of keep them going, but they don't need to dedicate a lot of time to them. So that's good to see. And it's nice not to... We've had so many episodes where like the boys are such a big focus. It's nice to try something a little bit different and focus on like a relationship that Tim has with a friend. So, I would agree though. It's definitely one of the better ones in the series. More depth to it than a lot of the other ones, and not as confusing as like Wilson as Santa. You know, none of those kind of like really confusing scenes that I don't really understand the implications of. So,
right, and something we should touch on. Club Piranha, where he wants to take Tino and Forche. You did some research. And,
there's more Club Piranhas out there than you would think. There's one about an hour and a half away from me in Tampa that I might go do some research at.
And you kind of frequent places like that.
Yeah,
those kind of divey Florida spring break bars. That's kind of what you do.
That's my MO.
You like to nuzzle up to the bar, order a Miller Lite and an app, and just kind of chill for the day. That's kind of what you do, right?
Yeah, I get there before anyone else gets there, so I can get the best seats, you know?
I don't think you would even know like what time that would be.
I go at like...
Your knowledge of the bar-going experience is pretty limited.
I go at about 1 p.m. No one's there. It's great.
Yeah. You go just in time for... You probably think happy hour starts at 10.
Happy hour is just when I'm happy, I thought.
Happy hour is a state of mind.
Exactly. So it's 5 o'clock somewhere. But
but there's no Club Piranha in Detroit.
No Club Piranha that I found in Detroit, but there might be soon enough. Or maybe it was there before the internet age and has closed since because Tino, Forche, and Stu shut it down.
As far as... Oh, that's good. As far as I'm concerned, before the internet age, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, so
it's nothing to me. Right.
So that's it for the.
What do you want to do? What do you want to transition into here?
I guess let's talk about social media. We've had a lot of stuff going on recently. We've had. I want to give a shout out to Sarah Robinson on Facebook. We've been having several different chats about the show in general, about casting, about Al's casting, and how Al and a couple other characters weren't the original intended actors and actresses for these roles.
Tobolowsky. Should talk about that.
Who?
Stephen Tobolowsky was supposed to play Al.
Yeah, and Al was kind of there as a filler, and then he ended up getting the role full time. Just a couple things like that. It's been good to chat with a fellow home improvement aficionado. So shout out to her. I'm also going to say shout out on iTunes. We've gotten a few reviews and ratings since we've been soliciting them. We got one from The Real JTT.
Wow, that's such an honor.
Yeah,
it really is.
I can't believe that he went on to iTunes and wrote us a little something. Studious Strawberry, Miltonic 1649. Thank you for your reviews, and of course, we're always looking for more. We're up to 11.
We actually got another review this morning. I don't know if you noticed. It's from C. Kyler's 4 as well. So we don't want to. The reviews are just coming in too fast for us to even keep up with them.
Yeah, and so we definitely appreciate that, and we'd love for even more reviews. So if you haven't yet, feel free to go on there, leave us a little ditty. We'll be gladly reading your name out on the episodes.
And Jordan, if you don't mind, maybe I could talk a little bit about Twitter.
No, we're gonna skip over Twitter. No, let's
hard pass.
Yeah, I know that you've been busy on there.
This podcast was built on.
And you've been disparaging me several times on Twitter. So go ahead.
No, man, that's not me.
No.
I want to thank our listener, and I'm pretty sure this is the same fellow that left us that last iTunes review. Kyle reached out to us via direct message on Twitter, and he noted that he can confirm that is in fact the real Richard Karn, because he listened to a podcast of Cooper Talk, a nice 2-hour long interview with Richard Karn, and in the last couple of minutes of the podcast, he does note that is his actual Twitter handle. So Jordan, in your face, I would say. In addition to that, we've continuing to do some polls and keep active. Jordan took over the Twitter duties this week, and I got to say he did a real fine job.
Bang up job.
Running a poll right now that is, what's your bowling average? And we've got 8 votes, which is a lot for a poll that we run. And 50% of Home Podcast listeners are in that 90 to 110 range, that respectable. So about where I'm at and you claim to be. Though again, I think you're near that 70 range in actuality. So
we're gonna figure out a time to go ahead and play sometime soon. So
yeah, and I'm talking. I want to clarify that you might think I'm talking about Wii bowling, but I'm talking about real bowling.
No, I'm talking about real Wii bowling. Okay. You stand no chance. So
yeah, that is very 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 true. But yeah. And, please, again, rate and review us on iTunes. We do appreciate that, and people have been doing a nice job of that of late. Facebook, again, Twitter, we're at Home Impodcast, and what else am I forgetting? Domain name, you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so if you want to go to our website, comment there, reach out to us there, thehomeimpodcast.com. And we'd love to have another mailbag segment whenever you guys have any questions for us or any thoughts. We love doing the Christmas lists a couple episodes ago. And so go ahead and email us at homeimpodcast@gmail.com. So that's all of the ways you can get in touch with us if you don't know our phone numbers. So I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Sure does.
Almost like it was never going to happen. You weren't prepared.
It's almost as if I'm stalling right now, trying to think of a question. All right, so I mean, I'm not going to ask you to list people that you're not that you find that you can't relate to anymore. Though that would be funny only for me. Okay, yeah, let's talk about.
This is a tough one.
Okay, Christopher McDonald is known for the role Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore. Shooter. Ugh. What? I want you to either talk to me about. Let's talk about Adam Sandler movies.
Okay.
Happy Gilmore is probably one of the most beloved Adam Sandler movies. Of late, he's kind of fallen on hard times making the straight-to-Netflix movies. But what's your favorite Adam Sandler movie or least favorite, or what do you make of Adam Sandler as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, boy, I loved him. Geez, I'm trying to think of my favorite ones. There's a lot that I really, really like. especially from the 90s. Happy Gilmore we mentioned. I love that. Billy Madison might be my favorite.
Yeah.
I like.
Do you like Billy Madison more than Happy Gilmore?
I think so. I mean,
I do too.
they're both good, but I really like Big Daddy actually. The Waterboy is good. I'm trying to think of any of his new stuff that I've liked. I didn't mind I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, but it's still like not.
I feel like that movie maybe wouldn't hold up that well.
Probably
even
not.
For a movie
I haven't
for a movie
it.
made like 5-6 years ago, I feel like if you watch that now,
I'd probably hate it.
With kind of like what they're doing, pretending to be gay to receive like insurance or something, that might not
be as good.
But yeah, I remember thinking it was really funny at the time.
Bulletproof was pretty good.
I think that's awful.
Really?
I hate that movie.
I think
I
so.
do.
Hey, you know what? I haven't watched it since the 90s, and in the 90s, I'm sure my bar was much, much lower. So,
have you? What do you think of this one? This is like a movie. I think that there's never been a movie that I watched where I was like more surprised about it being good than this one, and that's Click.
Oh, I don't really remember. I don't think I've seen that whole thing. I think I've only seen part of it.
Here's the thing. I remember seeing the previews for Click in like an Adam Sandler movie where he has a remote control that can like go back in time, and I thought this is going to be the worst movie ever made. But that movie has some real emotional weight. It's a lot like For Whom The Belch Tolls. It really packs an emotional punch, and I was very, very surprised by that. So it's recommended for Adam Sandler fans or just people that like to feel things. That like, they're not afraid to weep in a movie. Click will make you do that.
That's how the mother-son relationship in The Waterboy makes me feel. You know, it's very emotional, trying to break off from his mom's control that he's been in for years, and Vicky Valancourt, kind of her role in that.
That's how. Yeah. Do you like Mr. Deeds?
I don't mind Mr. Deeds, and then also I like the Wedding Singer as well.
My dad loves Mr. Deeds. Yeah, Wedding Singer is a very quality. That's a good one.
I would say Big Daddy actually is one of my favorites as far as like not like Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore are very obviously like out there.
Well,
and Big Daddy
is like. Yeah, it's like a little bit heavier than your Billy Madison or your Happy Gilmore. He's like a real person. Whereas in Happy Gilmore, there's not much depth there. You know, like his girlfriend died. His girlfriend breaks up with him, and he doesn't
freaks out.
Really care about it. Whatever. But and I watched I would say to give a movie that you shouldn't watch is The Do-Over on Netflix with David Spade and Adam Sandler. It is absolutely terrible, and it's an hour and a half of my life that I'm not getting back. And I spend 3 hours a week preparing for a home improvement podcast. So my time is not that valuable, but I did still regret watching that one. So
well, good stuff there. And so our next episode 15, will be Forever Jung.
Yeah, probably Carl Jung, the psychologist or whatever. But we will we'll get into that next week, and we want to thank everyone for listening. And I guess I should say again, take care, Jordan. Take care, listeners.
Thanks for saying that. Take care.
Yeah, gotta say it.
She was walking next to me singing, holding my hand just as natural as can be singing. We walk on to my door. We walk on to my door. Then we kiss.